In this video, we're going to discuss how we set up our development environment to actually be able to do work. I'm going to explain what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to use each piece so you can see how to do it for yourself. So when we set up our environment, we have to do a couple things. First, we're going to set up a GitHub account. You're going to need a GitHub account in order to be able to hand in your assignments, first of all. Then we'll set up Visual Studio Code for C++, apparently I can't spell today. And then we're going to install the MingW C++ compiler for Windows. If you're going to do this on a Mac, the process will be slightly different. After that, we'll set up Git access. And after that, we're going to test everything to make it all sure works. And then I'm going to show you how to actually pull your assignments and get going. So get ready. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our GitHub account. Now, what is GitHub? GitHub is a centralized place to deposit basically, a lot of shareware projects are up there, but basically it provides what's called a version control system. What a version control system does is it lets you put versions of your code up there, and every time you make a change, you put up the next version, but in an emergency, if you need to go backwards, you can. Okay? And GitHub is going to link in with Git, which is the actual program that does the pushing and pulling and the version control. And we're going to use GitHub Classroom in order to facilitate handing in your assignment. To create a GitHub account, first thing we're going to do is go over to github.com. Now, all you got to do is click on Sign Up. Now, I'm not going to redo this here because I have my own account. Well, one thing I request that you do is if you're setting up your account for the first time, use your name, like, Bob.Smith as your username, because otherwise it can get very confusing for me. Bob Smith or bobsmith.harper college. Okay? And when you sign up, it'll get you all set up. Create an account, get you all set up. You can enter your email first, and then pick out a user ID. Okie doke. Or you can use your Harper ID. In fact, that's fine too. I recommend using your Harper ID. So anyway, once you've got this done and you've logged in and handled all the tokens, the next thing we are going to do is we will move on to setting up Visual Studio Code for C++. So, step one, code.visualstudio.com. And you can download it for your appropriate environment. In this video, I'm only going to talk about Windows. I'll provide some instructions for others. So we've got it here. Open it up. Accept it. Install it with the defaults. Next. Install. And then we're going to hit finish. All right. And here we go. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to come down here to extensions, and we are going to just type in C++ and get the Microsoft extensions for C++, and click install. Okay. So now we've basically set up our editor for C++. So now we've got to go back and actually get the C compiler. And the compiler we're going to use is, we'll go to type today. Go to msys2.org. And we're going to download this guy here. All right. Open. And we're going to select the defaults. All right, I'm going to hit run. All right, now we got in here. What we're going to do is type in this command line, and I will make this available to you. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to install the tool chain you need. Okay, was all. We'll take the defaults, so yes, and it's going to bang around here for a little bit and finish your install. And jump ahead, and after it finishes, what we're going to have to do is update our environment variables. So here we're going to hit start. We will type edit environment variables for your account. Right. We're going to click on path, edit, and then what we're going to do, put a new entry in here, and what it'll be is browse. We'll go on the PC to where it dropped MSysW. Okay, and here we're going to go to UCRT64 for Windows, and then bin. And hit OK. All right. OK again. OK yet again. We're going to close this guy. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we want to test things. So what we'll do to test things is we will run a command prompt. Okay. Once we get our command prompt up and running, we will see if we install things properly. First, see if GCC installed properly, and it did. Now we'll check G++, and there we go. And finally, we'll check GDB. Okay. So now we finished that. And what we're going to do is we'll come over to our, wherever you want to do your work. I suggest setting up a, first let's make their, here, and then let's say make their, oops, and then we'll say make their projects, and then we'll make a project called Hello World. World, and then we're going to start up Visual Studio Code again. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Hit code period, and it'll just start it up for us in that directory. You can say yes and always trust. Yes, always trust. Right? So once we get in here, close this dude, and we will click here to create a new file. All right, and we're going to call that file Hello World. Okay. And we can say no to these. Case installed. Close that guy, and then we will say. Create our first app, include iStream.
Yeah. Oh.
So we're going to write a very basic Hello World program done in other languages. Or actually, since it's your first language, you probably haven't. But don't worry too much about what this does. We'll come back and talk about that in a bit. In a later lecture, actually. And then what we're going to do is main and all this does is tell the compiler to print out the words hello world to the terminal. I'll show you how that works in just a second. Okay, so once we're done, we're going to save our file. And then all we're going to do is come up here, and we will hit run. And it's going to say to pick one. What we want to do is pick G++. If you pick this, it might not work like this. Okay. Show again. And it compiled. Okay, and then if you go over here to terminal, it will show that it worked. Hello World. And you are all set on the configuration of C++. All right. So now the next thing we're going to talk about is how to configure it to use GitHub that we set up before. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to click onto this little doohickey that says source control. First thing we're going to do is download Git. And let's say open. And here we're going to download, if you're using Windows, the 64 Git installer. And when it's done, you're going to open this guy and accept all the defaults. Now, there's a fair amount of them. Okay. There's more than a fair amount. All right, I'm going to finish running. And once it's done, we're not going to look at either one. Okay, and then we're going to come back here. I'm going to close this guy and reopen it. Now, we can do one of two things called initialize repository, or publish to GitHub. We're not going to do either one because the next example I will show you is how to actually get your assignment from GitHub and begin working on it. Next, we're going to talk about using VS Code with GitHub Classroom to hand in our assignments. This isn't going to go into a ton of detail on Git. I have another video out for that if you want to learn more. But this will tell you how to grab your assignments and how to turn them in. Each assignment will have an associated link which you'll be able to find in Blackboard. So what you want to do is just copy the link here, and this will help you set up your initial repository. Click on this. It'll say you want to accept this assignment. Now, this is for a prior section, but I'm just using it for examination. Click accept this assignment, and it'll bang around and create your repository. When it is done, you will click on here to go see your repository. Here's your repository in GitHub. This is when you check in your files where they'll be stored. Like I said, you can refer to the other GitHub video if you like. Now, to begin doing our assignment, what we'll do here is we'll click here. We're going to copy this URL to the clipboard because we'll need it for use in Visual Studio Code. We're going to come back into Visual Studio Code now. We're going to hit this little button. We're going to say clone repository, and we're going to type in that URL we got earlier. And then we got to tell it where we want to store it. And so we'll just, for now, let's put it in documents with a new folder, assignment, for example. Right. Select that, and now we will say we'll have to sign in. Sign in my browser. Authenticator app here. And then we'll get us all set up. We should be able to return back to our code. And we want to open our clone repository. So, yes. And so here is our repository where we're actually going to do our assignment. So from here, we'll click on this plus, we'll say world CPP. Come over here and we'll start implementing it. So here, first, what we're going to do, in order for you to not lose points, is we're going to drop in our header. Troublesome here. Put that in there. Okay, so we've got our header, so you won't lose points. Now let's start writing our code. Again, you'll learn what this means later. But all right, and we'll say name, and we'll say count. Okay, and then we'll save our code, and before we do anything else, we'll make sure it runs. Compile it, it's going to be around here for a little bit. Come over here to terminal, we will see hello world. So our code works. So now what we're going to do is we want to hand it in. The way we'll do that is we'll come over here. We'll put in a message. If you don't put in a message, the thing gets funky. We'll say initial complete or assignment complete, and then we will hit the commit button. Always say yes. You try to commit and you see this error, we're going to have to set up our Git username and our Git email. So hit cancel here. Come out to this command line right here, and what we're going to do is type git config, and I'll give you this text dash global user name, and then give it your name. Oops, and I forgot dash. Git config dash global. And it finished it. And now we're going to do the same, say git config user email. And then we can give it our email. Again, looks like we're all set there. Now let's try to commit again. Okay, now commit is only step one. It says save my stuff on my local version system. To get it up to GitHub so we can see it, you have to click sync changes. It'll say this will push and pull commits. Hit OK. It's going to bang around, and boom, you're done. Hit no to this. So now, if we go back to that repository, we'll go to the web, go back to our repository, we'll get there, and now, boom, there's our code, magically updated with our complete. You can commit multiple times, okay, but you can only commit up to the due date, otherwise take off points. Anyway, so that's enough to get you started. There are other videos, like I said, about how to use VS Code, use Git and that sort of thing, but there you go. Enjoy.